Hello, hi, my name is Glenn English, and I want to talk to you a little bit about the work that we do here at 12 Step Method Acting Studio in New York City. I've been teaching method acting. That's what we do, we're method actors. I've been teaching method acting since around 2005, so I've been doing this for a little over 15 years right now. When we talk about method acting, and you may have heard different things about it. I suppose it really depends on who you're talking to when we use this term. A lot of purists will talk about method acting as strictly being Actor Studio and Lee Strasberg and all that. Fine, no arguments. Some people will extend the term a little bit more loosely to include Stella Adler and her studio and her work. Okay, fine. Some people will even talk about Meisner, Sandy Meisner's work in terms of methodology. I'm okay with that too. When I talk about method acting, the work we do here, we do use the term a little bit more loosely or more inclusively. Let's put it that way. I think that's a better word. I feel that if you have a method, then you have a system, right? You have a systematic way to approach the work. So you have a consistent approach and consistent results. So whether the emphasis of your training is in Strasberg, it's in Adler, it's in Meisner. For me, acting at the end of the day is an apples and oranges kind of thing, really and truly. Actors train, and as long as you train well, you end up taking what you've learned and you make it your own to a certain degree. So what works for you is what works for you. Now, with that in mind, when I started developing my own system, I think I was more concerned with the Strasberg work, which is primarily psychological and what we call sensory work. But I trained in all of these schools at different times, and I think that they're all very valid and they all have something to offer. So I don't see why you should only have one, when I think that Sandy Meisner did really wonderful work in many areas, and Stella certainly did wonderful work in areas, and of course, well, Strasberg is Strasberg. So I was studying acting for about 10 years, but I spent maybe the first 5, 6, 7 years when I was teaching looking for ways with which you could include what I think of as sort of the best aspects of all three of these schools into one philosophy and one type of training. And so I think that's what we've done here. So we take a lot of Lee stuff, like sensory, object sensory, place sensory, person sensory, overall. We do the work with the affective memory, and then we take some of the character building work of Stella, building a character from without is how I think of it, and so character analysis and text analysis, and we sort of dovetail those things in together, and we find a way to make them work very nicely, I think. And then we have a little bit of Meisner in there too. Meisner's big watch cry, of course, was get out of your head, which I think is great advice, and be in the moment and be open to impulse and be open to improv. And so we incorporate some elements of his work in there as well. Okay, the other thing that I think is sort of interesting and somewhat unique about the work that we do at 12 Step is that is the timeline of the training. I know all the acting teachers in New York City, past and present. Most programs run around 2 years. That seems to be about the average circle in the square. Meisner programs tend to be about 2 years, depending on teachers. Terry Schreiber. All of this work, and I'm not knocking any of those. I'm not, because these guys have been around for a long time with good reason. They do good work. But my feeling that back in the day, I got to New York in the late 1980s, and I studied for about 10 years with different people, and I studied with Schreiber, and I studied with Alice Spivak, who was Meryl Streep's acting coach, and lots of other people like that, and Marcia Haufrecht, and I don't know, Ken McMillan, and Burgess Meredith, and Sandy Dennis, and I don't know, Bill Hickey. I mean, there were a lot of amazing acting teachers in New York at the time. But that was 10 years of my life. And I think I did that somewhere in the back of my mind, that I knew that I wanted to teach acting myself at that point. So I wasn't so result orientated as I was process orientated. And I think maybe that's also a generational thing. But I do know that a lot of students and kids that I have now, Generation Y, Generation Z especially, I don't know that they're all that interested in spending 2 years of their life in a training program. And I think that that has to do with a lot of things. I think it has to do with our sense of time and technology and speed and what we expect. And you know what? I don't know that it takes 2 years to learn a method. I don't know that you need to spend 2 years in a training program. I know that typically we teach 12 core exercises, scene work, character building. None of my students are here any longer than 6 months. Some of them are out in 4 or 5. And I think that's reasonable, because I think if you come in and you do the work and you're committed and you work hard, you don't need to see 2 birthdays pass by. I think it can be done a lot faster.